So I'm hanging out with two of my friends. They're a little bit older than me. One of whom was like a mentor to me back when I was a youth worker, and the other guy was like one of the preachers for the church I used to work for. Yeah, that's a part of my history. I don't want to talk about it. But anyways, I'm telling them like, oh, I'm doing this YouTube thing now because my music career, poetry career is pretty much dead. The preacher is like, oh, hey, you should check out this book. So Glenn, if you're watching this, I hate you. I hate you so much. Hey, what's happening? My name is D. Welcome or welcome back to another episode of Book Reviews with a Regular Dude. Today we're going to talk about Morning Glory Milking Farm by, I don't even know. Hold on a second. But before we get into all of that, I got to give a special shout out to my Plus Ultra Don't Fretter, my top supporter on Patreon, Laughing Cat Dog. Thank you so much for your support. You're helping me create this content and ensuring that I'm able to keep putting it out as frequently as I do. If you also want to help support the channel, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon or just like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I got the title wrong. It's Morning Glory Milking Farm, a Monster Bait Romance, which is too good of a pun, personally, by C.M. Noscosta. It's book one of the Cambic Creek series, I guess. I wanted to be like a serious artist, you know? I still want to make music that would, I don't know, make people feel slightly less alone or slightly less sad or something. And now I do this. Yeah, a girl falls in love with a Minotaur. That's the premise. No, it's more complicated than that, sort of. Hold on. Actually, you know what? I kind of want to know what the Goodreads premise is, because I just took my friend's recommendation. He said like, oh, it'll be funny. Violet is a typical down-on-her-luck millennial. Mid-20s, overeducated, and drowning in debt on the verge of moving into her parents' basement. That's actually incorrect. It's an attic when a lifeline appears in the form of a very unconventional job in neighboring Cambic Creek. She has no choice but to grab it with both hands. Zing. Morning Glory Milking Farm offers full-time hours, full benefits, and generous pay with no experience needed. There's only one catch. The clientele is grade A certified prime beef with the manly meeting endowments to match. Milking minotaurs isn't something Violet ever considered as a career option, but she's determined to turn the opportunity into a reversal of fortune. When a stern, deep-voiced client begins specially requesting her for his milking sessions, maintaining her professionalism and keeping him out of her dreams is easier said than done. Violet is resolved to make a dent in her student loans and afford a name brand orange juice, and a one-sided crush on an out-of-her-league Minotaur is not a part of her plan, unless her feelings aren't so one-sided after all. Morning Glory Milking Farm is a short monster-human romance novel featuring a high-heat, slow burn with a lot of heart and a guaranteed HEA. Content warnings include cock milking, non-human anatomy, size different, and a lot of fluid. This is the first book in the Cambic Creek Monster Romance series and can be read as a standalone. Like, this video has to do so well for me to do any more of these. I appreciate the content warnings or the trigger warnings because not every author does that. So good on them. I don't have a lot to say on spoiler free, you know, just like characterization. There isn't really a lot to say. Like, yeah, Violet, which I don't know if that's like a Fourth Wing reference or just a popular fantasy name. She's every lead character from a sitcom. Like, she's Jessica Day, but she's not quirky. Rourke the businessman Minotaur, he is like, he's like what the love interest of the fine print ought to be. You know what I'm saying? He's got a sweet, tender, caring side. He's pretty stoic. And then he's got that like Dom energy that is really popular in romance books, I guess. And also he is a, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 foot tall Minotaur. So the mom's annoying, the friend's a vampire and she's horny. You know, this isn't something you read for like deep characterization. It's weird because the characters aren't even like, Violet's not unlikable. She's just kind of, yeah, she's just kind of neutral or whatever. Her motivations for everything she does are pretty clear. I can't say that they're understandable in the sense that, like, I can't see me being attracted to a male Minotaur. I can't see me being attracted to. I couldn't date a dude taller than me or with a cow head. That's the main one actually. The plot and the conflict is pretty like it's this is like a sweet, cozy, steamy sort of book, right? So like I think because it's cozy and it's sweet, there isn't a lot of conflict. Like this is very much like and then storytelling where it's just kind of like we go through it's almost like slice of life, so there's no like curveballs being thrown, there's nothing like you know what's gonna happen, because like I guess if you're looking for a book about a woman that is you can just imagine yourself being banging the Minotaur, this is probably the best you're gonna get. It's not even poorly written, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing really stands out to me one way or the other, which I think I say a lot. There weren't any there's so much opportunity for the dialogue to be really cringy and annoying, and it isn't like at all. And even when they're being gross, you know, with like Minotaur dicks and stuff, it's still like it's not that cringy. Like Gothicana, The Fine Print, Iron Flame, all of those have like spicy scenes or like really upsetting scenes. And this book didn't make me cringe in the same way. It made me cringe and it made me kind of think about going back to church and praying for a little bit, honestly. But it wasn't like the same sort of grossed out that I usually get when I read romance books, or at least the kinds of romance books that I've read for this channel. The thing that really stood out to me is like the world building is actually really good, which I thought was kind of weird because this is a society where humans and all kinds of magical creatures like Mothmen and vampires and elves and minotaurs, obviously, and some other kind of monsters all live in like a modern sort of like Onward or some other movie that I can't remember the name of. But it's like that kind of world where it's like there's magical creatures, there is like no magic, and it's like a modern society with coffee shops and fucking cars and you know, they use the term millennial and stuff, and there's like advanced technology or whatever. And so I don't know, like it was sort of the world building is spelt out like in a yeah, you get it right kind of way because it's so short. Usually the first 50 pages of a fantasy novel, you're like, what the fuck are they talking about? Because they have to establish like the rules for magic, or that there are dragons but there aren't wyverns, or there aren't griffins, or yes, there are griffins but like dragons. Come on, what are you talking about? That's crazy. You know, whatever the rules of the book are. So it doesn't do that, but it just like kind of builds like, here's the thing, here's the thing, here's the thing, you know, and it's like all these different species get introduced and things get explained through dialogue or just observation, and it's all really fast, but it's done really well to the point where I was like, you kind of just go like along for the ride and it makes sense as you go. And this part, which is so upsetting to read or to hear about if this isn't what you're into, which I'm not. So like part of Violet's job is it's a clinical lab where they're using genetic material from minotaurs to create, I guess, this world's version of like Viagra. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is Viagra because they say like the little blue pills for like humans to get erections or whatever. So it's in this clinical lab sort of situation, and the way the author describes how the lab is laid out and how the equipment is used and stuff, it made a lot of sense. And I don't remember if it was Brandon Sanderson or someone else, and part of that is because I don't read Sanderson and I never will. But there's some quote of like, if you want your readers to believe that a horse can fly, describe the saddle. And this book does a great job of describing saddles, if that makes sense. And I hated it. Like, it's good. It's executed well, I suppose you could say. But ugh. And I know what you're thinking, oh, like this dude's a hypocrite because wasn't he like talking about letting like orc women step on him or some nonsense? And it's like, yeah, I probably said something like that. I wasn't being serious. And honestly, think it's less gross. There, fine. Maybe I'm being speciesist, and the woke mob can come for me. I don't know, but yeah, I just think that orcs are less gross than minotaurs. I don't know. Something about it being like bestiality just doesn't sit right with me. Sorry. Anyways, yeah, let's just get into the notes or whatever. Part 1, Chapter 1, Violet is getting a job at Morning Glory Farm as a milking technician. She's trying to pay back her student loans. Relatable queen. She can't find a job in her field. Classic millennial problems. This job pays well and has benefits, so she doesn't have to move back to her mom's house in her small hometown. The job is collecting genetic material from Minotaurs for a pharmaceutical company. They use the material to make this world's Viagra. She's the only human at orientation, and I don't know why that matters. Like, I never knew exactly why that was important information. She watches instructional videos at her home, and then she goes to bed with a tingle between her thighs. And I was already like, oh no. Chapter 2, she gets a tour of the facility, and she's feeling ashamed because she's thinking of it as sex work, prude. But her trainer is like, oh, it's kind of like collecting blood. The Minotaurs get paid by the drop for their material. Violet observes the session, and this guy releases 24 fluid ounces. World building note, very descriptive of technology and facility to make it seem more believable. I already said that in the earlier part. But yeah, I kept being like, I know this book isn't very long, but they're taking the time to like describe the scenery, and like the truly spicy parts, like the truly spicy scenes aren't till like closer to the end. And you would think it would be like, well, I guess you'd think it'd kind of be like Taken by the T-Rex or Taken by the Pterodactyl, which I read for like some shorts. I see memes where they just say like 16-year-old would be so proud of who you've become. And I'm like, no, he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't. Chapter 3, Violet gets into the routine and has her first client on her own. She's surprisingly good at it. Goes home and masturbates. I think that first client is the love interest. I don't remember. Here's a quote. Sliding a finger into herself and adding a second and a third, trying to imagine how a cock that big could fill her, stretching her far beyond what she has ever taken before. She had a few well-endowed partners before, but she was hardly a size queen and couldn't imagine what it would feel like to be that stuffed. She finishes and feels weird about thinking about that client. So it was the love interest. And then she finds out that he left her $100 tip, because you can tip the people drawing genetic material from you. And then my note is, I swear if this is another rich guy romance, I'm going to set the building on fire. So I got to set the building on fire. I didn't say what building though. Chapter 4, Violet gets a request, and it's the same Minotaur from before. They call him like a clock watcher, because there's like some Minotaurs that just come in because they just want the extra money, and they're like busy businessmen doing businessy things, and they're watching the clock. Like, hey, come on, let's go. Which I was like, that's weird. There are also earners, who are like people who give a lot, and good little cows who talk a big game, but aren't delivering on what they promise. Chapter 5, Violet has a conversation with her mom over the phone, and her mom's like, yo, you should move back or whatever. And also I think she's like really trying to push that Violet start dating her friend's son. Again, it's very typical like millennial who's just trying to like do her thing, mom who's lonely and kind of overbearing, like, we see it a lot in media. Then Violet has another session with the business bull, and they flirt a little, and he recommends a coffee shop. In chapter 6, Violet goes to that coffee shop, and it's like really ritzy and expensive. I'm from like around the Vancouver area, so like I get that. And she's like worried that she can't afford it, because like a big plot point is how poor she is and how she can't afford good coffee or name brand orange juice or whatever. And when she gets to have nice coffee or pastries or whatever, it's like a big deal. It's a big luxury. And that I actually really did resonate with, which I hated. Like, I don't want to get too personal in my YouTube videos or whatever, but I don't make a lot of money, or like I'm pretty broke, and I don't really make much of anything doing like this. But every once in a while, like, maybe I'll teach a class, and the school that it hired me will pay a lot more than usual, or maybe somebody, donated to my Ko-fi coffee, I don't know, or something like that. And so I have a little extra, and then I can really splurge and get like the big side of rice from Barcelos or something like that, which is like, I think it's like El Pollo Loco for my American people. It's a chicken place. So yeah, sometimes I'd be splurging. So I understood the excitement of checking out a new fancy place. I like checking out new places. While she's there, some random woman starts talking to her like they know each other. And Violet's like, okay, I guess we'll play along. And I was like, cool, solidarity or whatever. And it turns out that this woman saw a client that she doesn't want to deal with because he's weird about their work relationship. And it turns out that this woman is a vampire who has a very similar job to Violet, but with blood instead of Minotaur genetic material. Part 3, Chapter 7. Violet fantasizes about the Minotaur and uses his file to paint a fuller picture of him in her mind. So that seems pretty unprofessional. Definitely like an invasion of privacy, kind of, In Chapter 8, she gets a cancellation and like her whole day kind of opens up or whatever, like her afternoon opens up. So she decides to take a really long lunch and asks the vampire if she wants to go for coffee. And I was like, that's kind of dope. I wish that I could hit up my friends and we could go for coffee kind of spontaneously. Like, I don't know if anybody else has adult friends. I hope you do. That was a weird way to say it. But you know how like hard it is to like plan things with your friends once you're past like 24? I make plans with friends like weeks in advance. That's honestly the most far-fetched part of this fantasy book. So while she's there, she bumps into the Minotaur, whose name is Rourke. She's hyped to learn it so that she can shout his name while she's masturbating. She finds out that Rourke might have a partner because he's very familiar with the owner of the coffee shop. So I think the coffee shop said, like, when are you and Sheila or Leela or Paul, I don't fucking remember, gonna come to my next party? So Violet's kind of upset, that he might have a partner, because that's going to really taint her fantasies or something. And so she lies and says that she's like on a lunch date. And I think he's also like the last session of her day. So it's weird. He is the last session of that same day. And they do like this weird sort of like passive aggressive interrogation of each other. And she finds out that the person who the coffee shop owner mentioned was actually just like Rourke's neighbor or some nonsense. In Chapter 10, Violet and the vampire friend hang out, and the vampire friend says that humans who live in Cambric Creek are just kind of there to get dicked down by other monster species and all that. And so people probably look at her funny and judge her for being like into monsters or whatever. Also, Violet trains a new girl, and the new girl just, she didn't care about the job. She didn't have the heart for it. And I was like, what is happening? In Chapter 11, Violet's great aunt, who functioned kind of like a grandmother, passes away. And then Violet goes away for a couple of weeks to like grieve and deal with the funeral and all that stuff. And then when she gets back, Rourke has a session with her, and he's like, where were you? I was left with a new girl, and she chafed me. And that was upsetting. I don't want to get gross, which I guess is too late for this video, right? But I've experienced that. It's not pleasant. I was so stupid too, because this person, she asked me like, was that good? And I lied and said, yeah. So because she like missed the job, because she like loves her job now, and she likes, whacking this guy off, she takes her time and enjoys it, He asks her out, like, you want to go for coffee sometime. And so they go to that coffee shop and they hang out. This is Chapter 12, by the way. They go to the coffee shop, and he's like, hey, I'd love to get to know you better, as long as it doesn't like mess with your work life, and if it's not like crossing a boundary. And we love a respectful king, even if he has a bull face. Chapter 13, they go on this first date, and then she gets home or something, and she goes to look up like his social medias. He doesn't really have any, because he's so busy being a busy businessman, and that's super realistic and relatable, like this really busy businessman. He doesn't have time for social media, so he doesn't have anything except for this world's equivalent of Facebook. But Violet's really good at stalking people on social media. So she finds his ex-wife because Rourke is divorced because he's like 10 years older than she is. But that's not why he's divorced. It just didn't work out. You know, they people change. You know, they're different people, and the people they are now aren't as compatible as the people they used to be, and you know, things happen. Life goes on. Life goes on. And then they kind of have like a dating montage. And Violet's kind of mad that they haven't had sex yet. Flirted and stuff. And there's a time where they're talking about, like, Rourke kissing her. And I was like, gross. He is a Minotaur, but he is so respectful. And he wants to respect Violet's boundaries so much. It is kind of funny, but it's, like, supposed to be cozy. And so when they're talking about, like, them kissing, I'm horrified at the idea of making out with a cow, with it making out with like an animal-faced creature. Cause like, you know, I don't know if I want to say this, but you know, there's some anime manga out there where it's like there's cat girls and cowgirls and stuff, and they just have weird ears, and I'm like, that seems fine. Chapter 14, they go out to dinner, and you know, Violet's trying to like tempt this guy so she doesn't wear underwear on the date, and he's like put his hand on her thigh because they're like sitting next to each other because it's like that kind of a restaurant where you can do that. I don't remember like what kind of food it was. It's Moroccan food or something, you know. And so they're like sitting next to each other, and he's got his hand up her thigh, and then he goes up, and he realizes she's not wearing any underwear. So then he fingers her, and then they go back to her place, and they start to get down, but then he like withdraws. He's like, "Nah, I would literally kill you. Look at me. You're not ready. There's like measures that have to be taken so that this is done safely and properly so you don't get hurt." And again, we love a respectful king. I don't know what my life has become, and it's very upsetting. And then chapter 15, they go on a date. It's the big night. You know, the spice is spicing, the steam is steaming. And then to be completely honest, the book kind of just peters out and ends. Like, they be dating. She moves from her apartment in the city to the suburb where the farm is. She tells her parents she's dating a Minotaur. The end. I feel like this is a pun, but like a satisfying end if you're into this. I kept trying to find a way to make a bullshit joke this whole video. Couldn't do it. I used to be funny, I think. Maybe I never was. I don't know. Maybe my one hate watcher can let me know if I was ever funny. But then I guess they never found me funny because they're a hate watcher. So yeah, I think I rated it 2 stars because like I would have given it a 1 star because it's so upsetting. But it is really well written, upsetting, so 2 stars. It's pretty highly rated because I think the audience that this is meant for understands that it's good. So I guess if you read monster romance, this might be up your alley if you haven't read it already. And I guess if you want to try monster romance, this could be a starting point. I guess. I don't recommend it. I'm not saying you should. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I don't know how long this video is going to be. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please give it a like, subscribe, share it, hit the notification bell. That all helps the channel out a ton. And if you want to help the channel even more and gain access to exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon. I do an extra rant review video per month. And when you sign up, you also get access to my private Discord server where you can chat with me and a bunch of really lovely people. They're just the sweetest, the best, the nerdiest. I like them. They're all great. They're fantastic. We also do a book club where we like vote on a book at the beginning of the month. And then at the end of the month, we meet up, do a live stream, and talk about the book together after we've read it. And I do another live stream that's just kind of more like a low-key, kind of chill hang type of thing. There's a lot of extra content. So yeah, if any of that sounds interesting or exciting and you want to help out the channel, that's a really good way to do it. Special thank you to my super duper don't fretters, Keisha, Cassie, Knightsmith, and Oliver. Thank you so much for your support. You're ensuring that I can keep creating this content and put it out as frequently as I do. Everyone else, thank you so much for watching this video. My name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out. Look in the sky, doesn't feel good.